everyone thought he was just another immigrant taxi driver who barely spoke English. For 3 years, passengers would talk about him like he wasn't there, assuming he couldn't understand. They had no idea that the quiet man behind the wheel was fluent in 7 languages, and tonight that misunderstanding would save their lives. Ahmed pulled his yellow cab up to the curb outside the high-end restaurant district. It was Thursday night, and the wealthy clientele were finishing their expensive dinners. This was always good for business. Rich people who didn't want to walk to their cars, didn't want to call their own drivers, and always paid well for a quick ride home. A well-dressed couple approached his taxi. The man wore a custom suit that probably cost more than Ahmed made in a month. The woman clutched a designer purse and checked her phone constantly. "Driver, take us to the Riverside Hotel," the man said slowly and loudly, as if speaking to a child. "Riverside Hotel, do you understand?" Ahmed nodded and said in his carefully practiced broken English, "Yes, yes, I know place. Very good hotel." The couple exchanged a look as they settled into the back seat. "I hate taking these immigrant drivers," the woman whispered to her husband, not bothering to lower her voice. "They never know where they're going. And you can't even have a proper conversation. At least this one seems to understand basic directions," the man replied. "Though I bet he's probably illegal anyway." "They all are." Ahmed's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. 3 years of driving. Nights in this city had taught him that silence was often the safest response. Let them assume what they wanted. Let them believe he was simple, uneducated, desperate. What they didn't know was that Ahmed Rashid had once been Colonel Ahmed Rashid of Syrian military intelligence. He spoke Arabic, English, French, Russian, German, Spanish, and Farsi fluently. He had coordinated international operations, interrogated prisoners, and managed spy networks across 3 continents. But that was before the war, before his country fell apart, before he had to choose between his conscience and his uniform, before he became a refugee with a useless degree and skills that no one wanted to acknowledge. Now he was just Ahmed, the taxi driver who smiled politely and pretended not to understand when people insulted him to his face. As they drove through downtown, the couple continued their conversation as if Ahmed were invisible. "The Patterson deal should close next week," the man said. "That's another 2 million in commission." "Good," the woman replied. "I want to buy that house in the Hamptons before summer." The seller is motivated. "We can afford it now, especially with all the cash we've been moving through the offshore accounts." Ahmed's trained ear picked up on something in their tone. These weren't just wealthy people discussing legitimate business. There was something else here. They were passing through a less affluent part of town when Ahmed noticed the black SUV in his rearview mirror. It had been following them for the last 6 blocks, always staying exactly 3 cars back. Professional surveillance technique. Ahmed's instincts, dormant for 3 years, suddenly sparked to life. Something was wrong. He took a subtle detour, making a right turn instead of continuing straight. The SUV followed. He made another turn. The SUV was still there. "Driver, where are you going?" the man asked sharply. "The hotel is the other direction." Sorry, Ahmed said in his broken English act. "Construction. I take different way." But his mind was racing in 7 languages, analyzing patterns, calculating risks. This wasn't random. Someone was hunting his passengers. As they approached a red light, Ahmed saw the trap. 2 more black SUVs were positioned at the intersection. One blocked the right turn, one blocked the left. The SUV behind them prevented retreat. Classic box formation. Professional. Kidnappers or assassins. The light turned red, and Ahmed had no choice but to stop. Immediately, armed men in tactical gear poured out of all 3 vehicles. They surrounded the taxi with military precision, weapons drawn. The couple in the back seat started screaming. "What's happening?" the woman shrieked. Oh God, we're going to die." The man shouted. 3 masked men approached the driver's side window. The leader, a tall man with cold eyes, tapped on the glass with his gun barrel. Ahmed rolled down the window and put on his most frightened, confused expression. Please, please, he said in heavily accented English. I just driver. I no have money. The gunman smiled cruelly. We're not here for you, old man. We want your passengers. Get out of the car slowly, and you won't get hurt. Ahmed nodded frantically and reached for the door handle. But instead of getting out, he noticed something critical. The leader had a small tattoo on his wrist, Cyrillic letters. Russian Special Forces. Now everything made sense. Ahmed switched to perfect, unaccented Russian. Gentlemen, I think there's been a misunderstanding. The effect was electric. All three gunmen froze in shock. The leader's eyes widened behind his mask. You speak Russian? The leader asked in his native language, clearly thrown off his script. Fluently, Ahmed replied calmly, still in Russian, along with 6 other languages. I also recognize FSB tactical formations when I see them. You're either current or former Russian intelligence, which means this isn't a random robbery. The passengers in the back seat had gone silent, listening to this exchange they couldn't understand. The Russian leader recovered quickly, but Ahmed could see uncertainty in his eyes now. This was not going according to plan. It doesn't matter what. You speak, old man. Get out of the car. Ahmed smiled slightly. Actually, it matters quite a bit. Because now I know you're here for the Pattersons and their offshore money laundering operation. And I know you plan to eliminate all witnesses, including me. The gunman's finger moved toward the trigger, but Ahmed was already moving. 20 years of military training came flooding back. Ahmed grabbed the gunman's wrist with his left hand while simultaneously throwing the car into reverse with his right foot on the accelerator. The taxi shot backward, knocking down 2 of the men behind the vehicle. Ahmed spun the wheel hard, using the car as a weapon. As the remaining gunmen scrambled for position, hold on. He shouted to his passengers in perfect English. The taxi's rear end slammed into one of the black SUVs. Ahmed threw the car into drive and punched the accelerator, threading between 2 parked cars in a maneuver that required split-second timing and absolute precision. Gunshots rang out behind them as Ahmed navigated through narrow side streets he'd memorized during 3 years of night driving. The black SUVs tried to follow, but Ahmed knew every alley, every shortcut, every hidden passage in this part of the city. Within minutes, they had lost their pursuers. Ahmed pulled into the parking lot of a 24-hour police station and turned to face his passengers for the first time in 3 years of eye contact. The couple stared at him in complete shock. Who are you? The woman whispered. My name is Colonel Ahmed Rashid, former Syrian military intelligence, he said in perfect, educated English. And you two are about to have a very long conversation with the FBI about your money laundering operation. The man started to protest, but Ahmed cut him off. The Russians weren't trying to kidnap you for ransom. They were hired to eliminate you before you could testify in a federal investigation. Someone leaked your location tonight. Ahmed pulled out a cell phone and dialed a number from memory. Agent Sarah Chen, FBI Financial Crimes Division. This is Colonel Ahmed Rashid. Yes, I'm still in the country legally. I have your missing witnesses from the Patterson investigation. They're safe, but we need to talk. As Ahmed spoke to the FBI agent, the couple sat in stunned silence. 3 years of assuming their driver was a simple immigrant who couldn't understand their conversations. 3 years of discussing illegal financial operations in front of someone they thought was invisible. 3 years of having their lives saved by a man they'd never bothered to see as human. When Ahmed hung up, the woman spoke first. We had no idea. We thought you were just just another ignorant immigrant. Ahmed asked gently. Yes, I know. That was the point. Why? The man asked. Why didn't you ever say anything? Ahmed looked out at the police station, then back at his passengers. Because sometimes it's safer to be underestimated. Sometimes survival means letting people see what they expect to see, not what's really there. And tonight? The woman asked. Ahmed smiled for the first time in 3 years. Tonight, I remembered who I used to be. 20 minutes later, FBI agents arrived to take the couple into protective custody. As they were led away, the woman turned back to Ahmed. "Thank you," she said simply. Ahmed nodded. "Perhaps next time." You'll remember that every person has a story. Every driver, every server, every immigrant you meet might be more than they appear. As the FBI cars disappeared into the night, Ahmed sat alone in his taxi, feeling something he hadn't felt in 3 years. Pride. His phone buzzed with a text from Agent Chen. "We've been looking for someone with your skills. Interested in consulting." Work. Ahmed looked at his taxi, then at the message, then at the dawn beginning to break over the city. Sometimes the end of one story is just the beginning of another.